Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, Cloud Native Success Without Compromise. My name is Deacleatiux. I'm the Director of Marketing at VAST, and I'll be your moderator today. Joining us as guest speakers are Bob Swanson, Vice President of Sales at VAST, and Ken Ellis, North American Director of Sales Engineering and Customer Success. Welcome, gentlemen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Gene. Greetings.
Thank you, Gene. It's good to be here.
So before we begin, let me share some background about our webinar hosts and talk a little bit about VAST and Oracle briefly. VAST is celebrating its 30th year, delivering high-touch, high-value IT services to enterprise and mid-sized companies. VAST is the Oracle Linux North American Partner of the Year. Oracle needs little introduction and is the world's #1 provider of business software with unique and comprehensive paths to the cloud, including Oracle Linux and Oracle's cloud native environment, which we'll learn more about today. We'll now hear from Bob and Ken and then open up for questions from the audience after that. Please submit your questions from the webinar's control panel. Good afternoon, Bob. Please introduce the topic and get us underway.
All right, thank you, Gene. And thank you to all of our attendees today. So speaking of our attendees, if you are here, you most likely know or have an idea of what cloud native means. Depending on who you're talking to, though, there are a number of variants of the definition. So according to the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, cloud native technologies empower organizations to build and run scalable applications in modern dynamic environments, such as public, private, and hybrid clouds. Containers, service meshes, microservices, immutable infrastructure, and declarative APIs exemplify this approach. So that's a mouthful. And who is the Cloud Native Computing Foundation? The CNCF was launched in 2015 by the Linux Foundation. It's an open source software foundation that is a community of projects, including, most famously, Kubernetes, amongst many others. It serves as the steward of these open source projects, and it fosters the growth and evolution of the ecosystem. Cloud native is really about how applications are created and deployed, not where. By name, it implies that the apps live in the public cloud as opposed to in an on-premise data center, but that's not necessarily the case. Like with many decisions you all make, there are a variety of questions and success factors to consider when evaluating an approach to cloud native. First, should we build or buy a solution? With many of the popular components of a cloud native environment being open source, customers can piece together a solution or buy a more packaged up, commercially backed option. With the buy route, what standards are things really based upon, and how open are some of these proclaimed open tools? Will a vendor selection create any kind of lock-in? What type of support requirements do we have? And finally, how developer-friendly and end-to-end are some of these solutions? So with all these considerations in mind, I would like to now hand it over to Ken Ellis of Oracle to review their cloud-native approach and platform. Ken?
Thanks so much, Bob, and thanks, Jen, for the nice introduction. And also would like to thank everyone that has joined the webinar today. So let's jump into it. As I mentioned, my name is Ken Ellis. I have been at Oracle around 13 years, started out on the database side, and today we're going to focus primarily on cloud native, our service offering around that, and then we're going to touch a bit about the underlying platform on which it's developed. So the first slide, again, this is basically a safe harbor statement that is just going to reiterate the fact that I'm giving you general information, no commitments on product availability or functionality. And now we get into the meat of it. So I know we touched a bit on this, but I think Bob did a great job of defining what cloud native is. I just want to dive in a little bit deeper as far as what we're seeing as a vendor when we work with customers and some of the challenges that they face. So one, we hear this all the time, quite often about, we've got to come up with a model. We want to start this model, and we want to have a, of course, cloud native set of technologies to help us provide these applications and services with faster time to market and also have better agility. We want to make our applications more modern. It's going to be a chance where we either look at retiring application, replacing, rehosting. There's a lot of different options available to customers, so they need to have a platform and an infrastructure that allows them to do that. And all of these really equal cost savings at the end of the day. So also from a maintenance perspective, we've got to make sure that we're able to care and feed, do a good job of caring and feeding of our applications in our environment. And another big plus here seems to resonate no matter who we talk to, is they want to have some level of independence from the vendors. So they don't want to be locked into one vendor and one solution. So let's take a look at this. I like to call this the periodic table for cloud native elements, and it's pretty inclusive, and it's also pretty daunting, because if you're trying to build a DevOps model based on cloud native technologies, you're having to pick and choose what you want to use for container infrastructure, any type of orchestration that you want to leverage, any kind of service mesh, on and on. So wouldn't it be nice if you had someone that would help you in that process and really help you identify what's going to be the right path to take to ensure success down the road for your firm? So to get to that path, or I should say to get to that goal, there are a couple of different ways that we see companies approaching it. Number one, they take from the open source project, download it, or they build from a vendor platform. So in other words, they've let the vendor provide a solution for them. Let's take a look at some of the pros and cons for both approaches. The first one, of course, latest, greatest technologies. So you're able to take advantage of the versions that are most current for each one of the projects. You're able to really run anywhere without any restrictions, like you would get from a vendor-based solution. And then, of course, this goes without saying, it's open source, everything's free. Let's take a look at the cons. There are very few organizations that have the level of expertise in-house to do everything end-to-end, along with support that environment. So it becomes very complex very quickly, and what if you choose the wrong element and you spend time implementing it? Wouldn't it be great if you had some options as far as a method or an approach or a blueprint to deploy that? So from a vendor supply distribution, the pro is everything is tested, works together. It gives you an enterprise support model. However, you are locked into the versions that they support, the elements that they support, and it's a very expensive proposition. And you're really at the vendor's mercy as far as, how do we contain that cost as time moves along? So let's look a little bit about how we're approaching this problem, and give you some ideas on how you may benefit from using an Oracle solution. So first, I just want to reiterate, this is our offering, our solution for cloud native. It's open, modern, it runs anywhere. It's not only built to run on-prem, but it can run in a hybrid multi-cloud model. And we're not just tied to the Oracle Cloud, you can run in the others, and we'll talk a bit about that later. It's also built on standards. We're not forking it. We are taking it from the project, providing it to you, and we'll discuss some of the support options available from Oracle in a couple of slides coming up. And again, we build it on what we like to think is the best Linux out there, which is Oracle Linux. And we not only build, we test, make sure everything's going to work, and then we provide that to you on our site. So when you download it, everything that we provide, we stand behind. It's been tested thoroughly, so you can deploy with confidence. So all these things all the investments that we're making to ensure your success helps you deliver those applications and services much faster. You're able to modernize those legacy applications and processes, and again, no lock-in, a lot more flexibility, and a lot less cost. So how do we choose which tools or elements from that periodic table are we going to test and use? A couple of things. Number one, we take a look at what our customers are using, our enterprise customers. We also take a look at what's going on within the Cloud Native Foundation. Just a reminder, we are platinum members of the Linux Foundation, which is a parent of the Cloud Native Foundation, which we are also a platinum member. So the important part there is we see what the industry is doing, what's hot around orchestration, what's hot around containerization, what's hot around monitoring and observability tools, CI/CD, all those things. We know what the industry is doing. We know where the resources are focused. We will focus in on those, and we'll download those from the elements from the projects themselves. We will provide them to our customers via the developer channel on our public repository, while we're putting a support model together for it. So in other words, you can download it if you want to preview the latest and greatest version of, let's say, Kubernetes. While you are testing out for your next iteration, we are ensuring that our support team is ready to go. Once it's ready for GA, we'll add it to the supported stack, and then throughout that development cycle, we're improving it and we're contributing back to the project. So all that said, we make the elements better by the investments that we're making in the open source community. So some of the takeaways: we test everything together. It's tested on our platform, which is Oracle Linux. Runs on the various clouds out there. You can build on-prem, you can use a third party, you can use our cloud, and it's included, it's not an add-on, including in our Linux Premier support offering. We'll talk about that in a second. So again, optimized and complete. We work with some of the largest workloads out in the industry. We see issues faster than some of the others because our technologies and the way we test our products and our elements will identify, or problems will arise much faster. We're able to identify them, and then we're able to fix it. So for example, our development platform within Oracle is Oracle Linux. We do all of our application development, middleware, database on Oracle Linux. All of these tools that we're talking about tested on Oracle Linux. There's hundreds of thousands of VMs running internally. Linux powers our cloud. So out of that, engineers are focused on making that a rock solid system and an ecosystem around the various tools that we support. And it's a full stack support. You're not having to call one vendor for your Linux support, one vendor for your cloud native element support. Everything comes out of one vendor, very seamless. And we'll talk a bit about how that will actually help you on the application side as well. And our support contract's very, very straightforward. I think the last couple of slides, or the next slide, we'll dive into what is a contract, what are the different levels of Linux, and where does my cloud native tool support come in at. So again, back to some of the business drivers and the imperatives that our companies our customers are asking for: faster delivery of services and applications, simplifying and optimizing processes, and driving costs down within the enterprise. So I think this is a very important slide, and I want to spend a couple minutes on this to make sure everyone understands some terminology. We have two different types of offering for Linux support within Oracle. We have the Oracle Basic Premier Linux, Oracle Linux Basic, Oracle Linux Basic contract. Excuse me, I'll get it out in a second. And what that is that's equal to Red Hat's best support, which is what they call premium. With the basic support contract, you get management, you get a lot of the features that you would have to pay for within the Red Hat model. However, if you go to what we call the Oracle Linux Premier contract level, you get all of the support for our cloud native tools that we're reviewing today, plus some very interesting other technologies. So Docker, Kubernetes, we get Linux support, virtualization, cloud native tools, you get live patching. So not only within your cloud native and your DevOps environment is keeping those servers highly available, the servers patched, very important. You get our tool called KSplice for that. You get the storage, Ceph, Gluster, HA management, and much more. So we'll dive into this a little bit more as well. But again, everything's included. And another point or another slide to illustrate this is if you take what we just covered there with the Oracle Linux Premier contract, all we need is the number of servers. You tell us you have 100 servers, you pay 100 for 100 subscriptions, and you get all those technologies included, no add-ons at the Premier level. Red Hat, you would start with the Linux support contract, and then you would have to, you want management, you have to pay for an additional subscription for that. If you want HA, you have to pay for that. File system virtualization, that's an interesting point that comes up. With Red Hat virtualization, you have to pay for that. We include KVM and Overt with a Premier support contract, so that's included. OpenShift, again, part of our CNCF, you would get the tools that you would get from their CNCF from us. Self-storage, and as you can see, the price starts adding up quickly with that type of an add-on, an a la carte pricing model. And they care about numbers of VMs, socket pairs, on and on. So what's interesting with not only is our contract very simple, to get a price from us, you just give us the server numbers and then the numbers of sockets, either 2 sockets or greater than 2 sockets. And it's a very simple process. And we do not charge for the virtual machines that are running within the hypervisor. You only pay for the hypervisor support, and all the virtual machines are covered. And that would mean not only for the Linux support, but also any cloud native tools that would be running on the virtual machines that are under support. I do want to spend a bit of time speaking to the security aspects of this. We offer we spent a great deal of resources and time to get certified. We have highest levels of security compliance within our Linux operating system. We have at Oracle something called defense in depth. So we're not just worried about the operating system. We're worried about the applications, the database, data on the wire. So we look at security as a system and not just one point product. So we all the way down to the chips, we have security built in. So to make an environment secure, you have to patch it as one aspect of it. So in a traditional model, you would be able to apply updates to packages such as Avahi or wget. All those would be package updates that you can apply while the system's up. But what do you do when you have a vulnerability such as a Deacleatiux? The fix for Deacleatiux comes within a new kernel. So you would push the kernel along with the package update, and then you would have to reboot that server. So in that reboot process, you have to go through change management. You have to figure out a time for the outage. You have to get time from your users. You have to shut down your applications, on and on and on. Well, with Ksplice, we take the Ksplice technology, allow you to still patch the packages with your normal Yum updates, and we allow you to patch those security and bug fixes live. So those source code changes are being applied to the running object code while that server is up and running live, no downtime. So you don't have to take the services down. You don't have to have an outage within your environment, but you're still able to keep those servers fully patched. And I spent some time on that because as you're working with containers, as you're running a lot more containers with that one kernel, that becomes even more difficult because you're shutting down a whole lot more services than just one database. I mean, there could be hundreds of containers running within that physical box. So it's a great way to keep those servers compliant and save a tremendous amount of time and effort in managing monthly reboots. Also, final point on this slide, we've implemented a new technology within Ksplice that will allow you to see if someone, it's called known exploit detection. So let's say that you've patched for Deacleatiux and someone is trying to take advantage of that vulnerability to get into a system. Well, it's going to alert through a log what the activity is. So that's an early warning system is what I like to think of it. So you can see what's going on and get a notification that, hey, something's up. People are trying to take advantage of this exploit. We've patched that exploit, but you should know there's activity that's going on within your system. So that's a big plus. So again, all these tie back to your business initiatives. Helps you and your company meet those compliance guidelines. And one part about compliance that many people may not know is since we talked about management of your Linux environment, we provide Linux management as part of the what Red Hat calls smart management. You get a tool like Satellite, but you also get a right to use Enterprise Manager, which gives you a lot more in a sense of a dashboard for compliance. So you get a lot more data about the health of your environment through Enterprise Manager than just a simple Linux patching tool. And again, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that environment is fully patched and secure. So let's talk a bit about pricing. And again, this is based on public information. No discounts applied on either side. So not to pretend that I know your pricing that you're getting from Red Hat, but a list price comparison. This is what we're seeing, and again, try to be very conservative and estimate. But I do believe that once you take a look at our support costs versus their support cost, it's going to be a several factors more with going with Red Hat than Oracle. So let's talk a bit about the enterprise level support you go with Oracle Linux. Just saving money, getting these tools supported is just one part of the equation. How do I make sure that the support is at the same level as I'm getting with Red Hat? And the answer to that is absolutely. In fact, it's much better and here's why. We have over 500 different products at Oracle. Our support organization is set up to support all of those 500, all 500 products. So if you're a database customer, there's an engineering team that supports database, middleware, security, applications, Java, MySQL, all those. So if you have a customer, if you're a customer and you have Linux support as well as database support from Oracle and run an Oracle database or MySQL database, guess what? You don't have to call it one number. So you may even make a mistake and say, we believe this is a Linux problem. Open a case with Oracle, Linux support, same number, by the way. So you open a case with our support and file it as a Linux problem. And our Linux engineers takes a look at it and says, this looks looks like a database problem or a cluster problem. Let's engage a team within Oracle to just verify what our findings. So they'll collaborate behind the scenes within our other areas to get you the right answer. We're not just focused on just an operating system support. We're focused on a complete system. So even if you're not using WebLogic, we're J2EE application server. We can help diagnose others that you may be running. So summarize enterprise support, the class support, 24/7 support. It's in over 140 different countries, and you have access to not just Linux engineers. You have access to all of the application engineers I mentioned, plus Java and other open source products that we have provided over the years. So, okay, now let's talk about where I can use these great elements. One, of course, on-prem, nothing's changed there. So if you're building an on-prem cloud, leverage all these elements that we're discussing today. Deploy those, use them, open support cases, and we'll take care of those issues. And also within clouds, use the same tools, same Linux, same orchestration tools, same containers, all from the same source, and use those inside of AWS, Azure, Oracle, others. So again, you're not going to be locked into one company or one deployment model. You have lots of options available to you. So we try to make sure that we provide the support in a very flexible manner. So you may ask, this sounds good. So what do we do next? What can we do to get more familiar with your support, more familiar with the cloud native tools and offerings? A couple of things. Number one, as I mentioned, you can go to our website. You can look at our preview channels. You can get the code. We don't hold that code from you. It's absolutely available to you that way. But what if you wanted to have a little bit deeper dive and understand more about, hey, I'm using one thing for the orchestration and would like your input as to what would be the best for orchestration, maybe some best practices or some blueprints for orchestration. Well, we can certainly help with that. We work very closely with VAST and would love to schedule a workshop on site to dig into some of our best practices, to offer some suggestion around deployment options. And one of the big values that we do bring to the table is the fact that our engineering teams are putting together and have put together these blueprints. These blueprints are how best to deploy these elements, how they work together, how to scale, how to plan, how to manage. So those will help as you ramp up and as you decide to build these out. And of course, Oracle doesn't expect you to use every one of those on that list. If you have gone down the path, and chosen another tool for networking or whatever, you can certainly use that. Or if some other CI/CD tool for pipeline, that's fine. We work well with the other elements, so you can pick and choose what makes the most sense. So don't think that what you have in place today will not work with ours. It absolutely will. So again, those are some options as far as getting getting our experts on site with you, talk through your infrastructure, see how we work together to really put together an approach and answer any questions that you might have. So with that, I'm going to open it. I want to turn. First of all, thank you all for your time, and I want to turn it back over to Bob and Gene, and we're going to open it up for some Q&A. But it's been a pleasure, and look forward to some great questions.
Well, thank you, Ken. Thank you, Bob. The platform really does address, a lot of the cloud native success factors that Bob addressed in his introduction. And just as importantly, it also addresses or overcomes a lot of the compromises that were expressed in his introduction as well. So thank you both. We've gotten several questions that have come in from the audience. And so let's get to those. The first one I think I'd like to address, I think is a good overview question. Is the Oracle Cloud Native environment an actual product, a bundle? What exactly is it?
Okay. Would you like me to take that, Gene? This is Ken.
Certainly,
okay.
Ken.
So, yeah, absolutely. So it is what I would call we have a set of tools, a lot of elements from the Cloud Native Compute Foundation that is really the ones that we are supporting, and those seem to be the most relevant in the community. So it's not necessarily a specific product; it's more of a support model, and the elements that are included in that model are going to be supported through our support contract with Linux. Does that make sense?
Yes. And so this is one of the other follow-on questions then, then does the Linux support include tools other than Oracle? So some of the other products that were listed there, like Kubernetes, Docker, and such, are they also included?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that would definitely include Kubernetes, Docker, those types of elements for Cloud Native. So good question. Thanks for clarifying.
The next one says, you talked about collaborative support tickets. Is that only for Oracle products, or is it everything in the Oracle Cloud Native environment?
Yeah, and it is definitely not just for Oracle products, and I'll expand on that a bit. We have relationships with a lot of different ISVs out there, or independent software vendors, hardware vendors, and then more specifically to the point about Cloud Native, we work with the projects themselves. So if there's something in that suite of elements that are on the supported list, we'll work with the project to make sure that any issues can be resolved. So yeah, we cover both of our products as well as elements of Cloud Native that we have certified and support, and then of course for some external software and hardware, we have those channels in place as well.
All right. The next one, Bob may be able to answer this one up. The question was, I'm not sure I need all the components of Oracle Cloud Native environment. Can I buy a la carte or not include what I don't need? Do you want to try that one?
Yeah. So basically, you get the whole suite of it, and you pick and choose what you feel is needed for your environment. But we're not by any means saying that you've got to use exactly what's in our suite of products. You can, if you're going down a path with another element, use that, and then complement that with something that falls within our product set. So we don't, everything is included. So there's not a price for Kubernetes and a price for any of those other elements. It's just part of it.
You know, and Gene, if you don't mind, I might add to that as well.
Sure.
You know, part of the reason for that is just to keep the metering and the pricing model very, very simplistic, right? You know, as Ken touched on in part of his presentation, you know, it's truly by server. So, you know, we're not looking at a bunch of other items to meter, not offering a large a la carte menu to keep it simple, and also by you know, metering by server. You know, this is really available for everyone, right? Can scale up, can scale down, you know, very easily from you know, small and medium businesses to large enterprises to public sector entities and really everybody in between. And at Vast, we've worked with you know, all sorts of different organizations, you know, for Oracle Linux and the solution.
Okay, thank you. This is a pricing question that came through. It said, Ken, you mentioned the subscription model and a per server as the meter for pricing. What about public cloud instances? How would that be priced?
Yeah, so we do have a policy, and I don't have that in front of me, but there is pricing on our site for instances that are in like AWS or Azure or so forth. So there is something and as a follow-up, if you would send an email, we'll be glad to provide that link to you.
Yeah, I can, Gene, I'll add a little more color on that one as well. You know, when we're talking about on-prem, we're talking about server and socket counts, and obviously out in third-party public clouds, meaning the public cloud providers other than Oracle. The subscriptions are transferable, but the meter turns into vCPUs or virtual CPUs for cloud instances. So there is a conversion factor. We could follow up with anybody on the specifics of that, how that conversion occurs, but it does become based on vCPUs, and again, is a very simple model.
Okay, great. Thanks, Bob. Not sure who's best to field this one. What if we are not using elements on the DevOps CNCF list?
That's
so yeah. You want to take that, or you want me to?
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, so I'm assuming what they're saying is, let's say that they're using something for observability or management that is not necessarily on that list. Well, it certainly will run on Oracle Linux, but from a support perspective, you know, we're not gonna provide support for that particular element. But again, it will work alongside the supported tools, and it's going to be in more of a self-support model. And we see a lot of customers that do that. So for customers that are really wanting to use open source software and manage it themselves, but on Oracle Linux, that certainly is something that absolutely will work. And we have some cases that we can point to.
Great. We have one or two others here. I'm not sure who best to answer this. Do I need to purchase a subscription for virtual machines?
I can answer that too. So
go ahead.
That's the beauty of this model that we have. You're not penalized for having virtual machines on your hypervisor. So a great example of that is, let's say you have a 2-node VMware environment in your cluster, and you have 100 virtual machines on those 2 nodes. You buy two subscriptions from us, and then all of those VMs are fully covered for all the features and for Linux and everything else that we discussed on today's call.
Okay, thank you. This one just came in. So I think we may have answered this one at least partially. So are tools like Kubernetes and Docker included in the support packages? And specifically, which one? Would it be basic or premier or both?
Oh, good question. Good question. So Docker is supported with Basic and Premier. Kubernetes, you would have to be at the Premier level. And also another point, some of the other components that I mentioned for that are specific to the cloud native foundation and some of the other elements, Istio, Prometheus, Fluentd, all those would be included with support at the Premier level. So I hope that answers your question.
I think so. Thank you. Okay, one final one. The question was, what were the blueprints that you mentioned and what do they include? How do I see an example? I remember you commented on blueprints, Ken.
Yep. Great question. So yeah, that's one of the benefits of working with Oracle on this, because we have a team of people within engineering that are focused on the various elements, and we get questions all the time about how do we size this environment properly? How do we get ready for whatever, not just Docker, but containers? How do we prepare for containers? So we have blueprints, and they're almost like an enhanced white paper, if you will, that can address how do you stand up a Docker environment with then Kubernetes and then the other ones that I mentioned. So as far as an example, I'd love to follow up and provide you some links to that. So absolutely, we can get you some of that follow-on material. But it's really good because it gives customers understanding and insight into how to scale the environment, how to build, start off building it, and get their operating model really set up for a successful deployment.
Great. Well, I guess the closing question is, Bob, to you, how do folks reach us for more information and to possibly sign up for a workshop as Ken suggested?
Sure. If you are, working with VAST today or have an account executive, please do contact your VAST resource and we can get something scheduled. If you're not working with us today, we'll be sending out a follow-up, email from this webinar, with the recording and some more information, and there'll be an opportunity to follow up that way as well if you don't have someone that you're already working with.
Excellent. Well, that's all the questions that we had. And I want to thank you both, Ken and Bob, for your insights today, and thank the audience as well. Thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed Cloud Native Success Without Compromise. Thank you very much.
Thank you.